Alright, and we're on. So, this is Gretchen. Hi, Gretchen.
Hello.
So, we just met today. We're gonna talk about like being an expat in Cork, Ireland. So yeah, how long have you been living here?
I've been living in Cork for about 1.5 years. Before that I was living in Hungary, and before that I was living in Germany, and before that I was living in Wales, and then before that
Okay, so we have the expat. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I've been doing this for a while.
Okay. So, do you remember like the first
Like impression?
Impression.
Yeah, so when I first came to Ireland, actually, I wasn't sure exactly where I wanted to live. I thought maybe Cork, maybe Galway. I wanted a small town that I could walk from one side of the city to the other if I needed to, but also like big enough to have culture. So I visited Galway, and when I came back here, I just felt that there was something about Cork that was very friendly and inviting, and it had like a really good ambiance. So I chose Cork because I liked Cork from the beginning, and I really like water. Anywhere that I live has to have some sort of like lake or the ocean or a river. So I liked the like canals through Cork and all the bridges.
And the port, port cities are the best.
Yeah, it was the aesthetic really suited me.
Okay.
And I thought that the people were just very friendly, and there was just like a really good atmosphere. Like the vibe was really good.
Right. Okay. Totally. That also gets my attention. Okay. So you chose Ireland just randomly, or you knew someone here, or
I knew no one here.
Okay.
No
it was
friends.
like a random decision.
Yeah, I have some friends in Northern Ireland, but not in the Republic of Ireland.
Yeah.
So when I had been living in Wales, I had loved living in Wales, and I would have lived there forever if I could have.
So if someone were to move to Cork, how easy it is to find an apartment on a scale from 1 to 10?
So with 1 being the easiest, 10 being the hardest?
Yeah, let's do it that way.
11.
Okay.
It is so difficult. There are just so few apartments here, and there are so many people who
I know, like, even going on Daft, you can literally see, like, 3 offers or something in Dublin. Like, that's what I was, like, browsing recently. And, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, you have no options even to choose from.
Very few options. Everyone is trying to get a place. Honestly, I wouldn't even look at Daft because I think that they get inundated by so many replies.
Yeah.
There are Facebook groups in Cork that are, like, looking for a flat share or looking for a roommate.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's the best way.
Okay.
To find a flat.
Okay, cool. And what about job hunting? If someone is like coming here from, another country and need to kind of, start from scratch, basically, what do you think?
I didn't have a very difficult time. I felt that there were lots of jobs available when I was looking, and I was going into a field that I don't actually have any experience in. So I needed a company to sort of take a leap of faith with me. I knew I could do the job. I had done that sort of job in my previous workplaces, just like not as an official title, so I knew I could do it. But I didn't know. And I see loads of shops that have like we're hiring in the window. So.
Yeah, I saw that too. Yeah, so yeah. Seems like okay.
It's not an impossible task.
Okay. Perfect. And in terms of like a range of activities in Cork, how can you compare it to maybe other countries or something you're used to? Like, if you have like some unusual hobby, like how easy it is to find it here, like were you able to, you go to choir, right? So like, can you talk about like hobbies and like entertainment options here?
Yeah, so one of the reasons that I specifically chose Cork is because I wanted a town, like I said, that was small enough that I could walk from one side to the other if I needed to, but had like a cultural presence. And I found when I would just Google things about Cork that there were so many festivals going on or events. And then once I moved here, there's a group called Was on Cork, and they make these little pamphlets, and they hand them out at like the library or like various shops. Yeah. And I just go through those every month and just circle everything.
That's what I used to do. Yeah.
Like art galleries that are going to be open, or like there's a singers club down at I can never say this correctly. It's Irish. It's Anstelp and Fanax. I'm so sorry. That is not how you say it.
I never know how to pronounce it.
They've got like they call it like an oral singers club, and they basically just said like in the description they're like if we're not singing these old songs, they're gonna be lost. So we just get together on a Sunday night and sing them. I've never gone, but I'd like to. So I think that there's so many like such a variety of people who live here. Cork is very diverse. I was very pleasantly surprised to see how diverse Cork is. Like, you hear so many languages on the streets. You see so many different cultures. And so, I mean, if there's something you're interested in, you're gonna find it in Cork. Cork is a great place.
For sure, for
I'm
sure.
a
Like
big
Cork
fan
attracts. Okay,
Cork.
okay, it sounds like advertisement for Cork. They
Yeah.
should pay us, you know.
Come to Cork.
Yeah. Okay. So there are also obviously a lot of downsides, like lots of disadvantages of being an expat, like moving to another country, starting new, kind of starting fresh. Can you tell us a little bit about this? Your struggles? Did you struggle with anything? You moved a lot, so
Yeah,
what are your
sure,
thoughts?
of course. There were always struggles. I think one of the biggest things that has made an effect on me is when you move to new countries, you are starting from scratch. No one knows you. I'm very extroverted and I don't mind just talking to like random people. So I make friends quickly. But it does take, I find it takes about a year when you move somewhere new to find the friends that like you actually want to hang out with on a Friday or Saturday night. You'll make lots of friends and you'll have good times. But it takes a while to really meet the people that like are going to be your people. And I find that like after a while you do start having the same conversations over and over again. You have to meet people, you have to explain your life story, and you have to hear their life story. And I'm staying in Ireland for a while, and I am excited to have friends I can reminisce with again.
Of course.
Because it has been a long time since I've just had friends who already knew everything
of course,
about me, and I don't have to.
Yeah, and I feel like also when that's what you mentioned, like you meet a lot of people. So at the beginning, especially, you're kind of like going with the flow, and you're like with random people. But then you start this next phase, and like you actually select people, kind of like you're more selective in terms of like who you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
Because there are plenty of people, but you're not gonna stick with everybody. Right?
Yeah.
You're not gonna like get on well with everybody. Yeah. So like finding your tribe.
Yeah, and I feel it takes about a year. I got very lucky when I moved to Hungary, though, because I joined a choir like my second month in and made my best friend and met my boyfriend.
Oh, okay. So, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So
but that was an outlier. That's not how it normally happens. It normally takes a while.
Yeah. Okay, fun. Okay, any other...
and do you want me to say anything about, like, family as well? Like, okay. You don't have your... So, so obviously, when you move to another country, you don't have the support group with your family. So, like, there's times even just when I've been a little bit under the weather, and I've called my mom, being like, Mom, I wish you were here to give me some chicken noodle soup and, you know, like, take my temperature. Like, there's no one here to pamper you and take care of you.
Especially when your family's on another continent, right?
Yeah. So, it's not for the faint-hearted. Like, it's... You're gonna be alone. And that's okay.
Yeah.
But you have to be strong enough to be alone.
Yeah, totally. Well, okay. Any other difficulties, or how do you deal with, especially the initial phase? I feel when you sometimes feel like, oh, I'm not gonna like meet my tribe, my people. Like you meet people and you're kind of disappointed because you don't really click with anybody. So of course this has to pass. You have to like give yourself some, It's
tough. It can be disheartening. I think that it's important to have hobbies that you like to do and fall back on those when you don't have necessarily like a social group. So like I do photography and I knit, and those are two activities that are great to do by yourself. I'll often take my knitting like down to the pub just so that or like to the coffee shop just so that I'm around people.
Exactly.
It makes it maybe a little bit less daunting.
Okay. Yeah, and of course through activities like hobbies you can meet people that are like-minded.
And also joining local community groups is really important. Like I sing in a local choir here, and I did that one because I like to sing, but also you're just immediately in with the local population. I think that it's very easy for expats to make friends with other expats.
That's what I was going to say.
Because everyone's looking for friends. Everyone is alone. The locals have their friends, and they've probably had their friends, you know, like since they were children. So it can be difficult to like get into that group. But if you join some sort of community group, or like I also volunteer at a clothes swap that happens twice a month here. And so, you know, it's just like a social event where I hang out with the same people, and now we know each other, and you know, we start to hang out outside of the swap as well. So I'd say it's so important to have hobbies that can keep you occupied when there's genuinely no one wants to hang out with you, or no one is available to hang out with you. Sometimes you have like 5 friends total in the city, and one of them is visiting their family in Dublin, like 2 are up with their friends, and another was like on vacation to Spain, and then you're like
friends.
I'm all alone. I'm like, sometimes that's gonna happen. That's just what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
But also join a community group and just find ways to participate in the local community. It's very rewarding.
Okay.
And,
yeah, so you have to put yourself out there, and there's no way around this. Yeah. Okay, fantastic. Thanks for your insight. Okay, I'm also very curious, out of all the countries that you were based in, like you lived in for a while, which do you ever feel like you would go back to a country, or you ever miss, you know, whatever you left there? Of course, like you've got like the sentiment and... Yeah,
there are loads of things that I miss about each one of the countries that I've lived in. Like, when you're walking around here in Ireland and you come to a crosswalk, the cars don't necessarily always stop for you. And I always go, Germany. Yeah. They would have stopped 4 feet away, you know? Like little things like that were like, well, that wouldn't happen in Germany. Well, in Hungary they wouldn't do that. So there's certain things, obviously. And actually, one of the things that I love about living in all these different countries, I didn't necessarily like go out with a plan to live in these specific countries. It just sort of happened that I ended up in each one of these. And I think it's so interesting to spend a full year in a foreign country, just like in the local culture, because there are things like, there are little festivals or holidays that exist, like you'd never know they existed unless you happened to vacation there at that specific time. And so I really feel that I have been exposed to all these different cultures that have their own unique little ways of doing, or recipes, or events, or like, you know, funny phrases of speech. And I feel like I've brought all of those like into my soul and into my personality. And I really appreciate having all those little cultures that have I've just spent time in, marinated in. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's why 1 year is like the minimum. Definitely. Just to fully experience. You can't experience all the seasons in the country. Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah, I remember like some random sardine festival in Portugal, like they do it, like, I don't know, or like some weird festivals that you wouldn't really experience otherwise. Yeah. So in Hungary, they have this dessert that's called kurtos kalács. Okay. And it's brilliant. It's like this dough that they take like a big wooden... Well, it translates to chimney cake. So there was a chimney cake festival going on in the park, and I was like, this is brilliant. So I'm like wandering around, like looking at all the different chimney cakes, and then I get to this one stall where it was like, make your own chimney cake. And it was very clearly for children. And I walked up and I was like, can I make a chimney cake? And they were like, yes, you can. So it's like all these 5-year-olds and then me, like, so I'm like roasting my chimney cake, just please this punch with myself. That's great. Amazing. Nice. And the best one in Budapest is when you're going into the red metro, so you have to scan your ticket already, right? It's like inside the metro. There's like a little stall that sells them there, and they are, honest to God, the best chimney cakes in all of Budapest. Speaking of food, actually, like any other Hungarian food that is kind of... I loved Hungarian food because Hungarians, they cook with a lot of paprika and they like spicy food. So like, you know, having lived in Wales and Germany, kind of on the blander side of food, but Hungary has really, really great cuisine. And the guy I was dating as well he could be a gourmet chef if he wanted it. So it was the best I ever ate. So the thing that I loved about German cuisine was that you could get, if you were walking around and you just like need a quick little bite to eat, all the bakeries there have just the best sandwiches, like full of stuffings and like really nice breads. Like here you get a sandwich from the shop and it's, you know, there's like maybe a single little piece of lettuce. No, the Germans, when they make a sandwich that you relish. I do miss those. Did you participate in like Oktoberfest or something? Absolutely. Yeah. So they've got Oktoberfest down in Munich, and then in Stuttgart they call it Volksfest. And the joke amongst people who live in Germany is that like Oktoberfest is for the tourists, Volksfest is for the locals. And so it's like it's exactly the same as Oktoberfest. It's just not as crowded. And then they also have one in the spring. And the Spring Fest is genuinely the best one because you're out there in your cute little drindles and lederhosen, and then it doesn't get cold at night. So I recommend going to Frühlingsfest over Volksfest. Okay. Okay, so you're coming from the US. How often do you get home? Do you get homesick? Are there any things that you miss from America and you would bring them here, or like you wish they existed here? Like, there are certain conveniences that I took for granted in America. Like, shops always being open, like till 9 p.m. Also, another thing is that the coffee shops here all close really early. Like, if you want a coffee sort of later in the day, you really have to go to like Starbucks or Costa.
Yeah.
And that's a shame. It'd be nice to have a place just like a cafe or coffee shop that's just like open later.
That's true. Yeah.
But I don't really go home to America. I never really felt American when I was growing up in America. Like, I just sort of knew that it wasn't like, there was just something that didn't really fit. And when I went to Germany for the first time with my mom when I was 13. It was Christmas time, so I like stepped into the Christmas market there, right? And just like looked around at the snow falling and like the cathedral and the merry, you know, laughter and lights and the smell of glühwein and like roast almonds and like a choir singing on a stage, and I was just like, this place is magical. This is like Narnia, and this is where I want to live. And by the end of that trip, I was so in love with Europe that I told my mom at age 13, Mom, I'm going to live in Europe one day.
Oh, so you always knew.
Yeah.
Well, early on. Okay.
Yeah, and she was like, okay, do whatever you want.
Whatever.
You know? Like, sure, you're 13.
Okay.
So I feel much more connected to Europe, and I feel that this is much more like my personality, and I just belong here. It's very expensive to go home, and I don't really enjoy being in America, so I'm going home in April because my sister's getting married.
Oh,
and I think that'll be the first time in about 7 years that I've been to Ohio.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I wonder if
But
something changed or...
But my family comes to visit me.
Okay.
We're very close. We talk on the phone all the time, and everywhere that I've lived, they've come to visit. It's an excuse for them to travel internationally.
Exactly.
So.
They have like a place to crash. And
Yeah, they've been having a great time. Don't pity them. They're fine.
Okay. And is there anybody else in your family who chose this kind of path? Or
no. Well, so my mother dropped out of college to travel around America. So that's where I get it from. But all my family is very adventurous. My sister is the opposite. She's very much a homebody. So, like, that's good. My parents got one child who jetted off, and the other one stayed in Ohio.
Okay.
A little bit of both.
Yeah, that's true. So there's two of you.
There's two of us, yeah.
Yeah. I'm the only child, so my mom, every time I go, like, somewhere, living in another country, she's like, oh my god, like, I'm gonna miss you, but, like, she also visits me, so, and it's not like, I mean, it's Europe, so it's not that difficult.
You're not that far away.
Okay, so let's talk about some culture shocks that you experienced. So, as your first country abroad, that was Wales.
Yep.
So, what was it? What happened?
Yeah,
what shocked you?
There were definitely a few things. It was very interesting to me. The culture of just casually drinking was fascinating to me because in America, first of all, like, let's talk about company, right? You wouldn't go drinking with your boss. Like, you'll have maybe like a Christmas party, but you would never just like go to the bar with everyone that you work with. And then when I was working for a television station in Cardiff, and there was a pub like around the road, and so the first like Friday that they were just like, we're gonna go to the pub, Gretchen, do you want to come? And I was like, this is wild. Like, I never go drinking with my boss. And it was just like why not? Having a bar on campus, like, in the student union, I was like, stop, this is wild. Because obviously, like, the drinking age is so much higher in America that will just never happen. Yeah. So when I found out that at Swansea University, where I was going, that not only was there a bar in the student union, there was also a club in the student union.
No way.
Like, there was a pub and there was a club. And I was like, this place is wild. It's just, like, so cool. Like, it's just so much fun. And one time, like, also drinking on the streets, right? We have open container laws in the States. You can't have an open container. So there was one day that we were going from a party to the club, and my friend goes, oh, Gretchen, would you like a road beer? Like, would you like a beer for the road? And I was like, you can drink on the streets here? And he looks at me and he goes, of course. Duh. It's a free country. And I was like, that's wild. In America in general, I think there's a stereotype, which is true, that Americans tend to dress down. Like, they'll go to school in their sweatpants, or they'll go out grocery shopping in their sweatpants. It's much more casual. And then when I was going to the bars in Wales, and girls were like, dressed for prom. And I was like, this is different. This is different.
Yeah, it's like another world.
It's another world. So I found all that very interesting. Culture shock. I think the pace of life, obviously, like everything here too, like everything's a lot more chill. There's more of like, you know what, we'll get to it. how to slow down a little bit. And every now and then, the American in me is like impatient. You know, like I want the service now, and I have to remind myself.
Okay, so that was Wales, and then from Wales you went to Hungary.
Germany.
Germany. Okay, on the way. Okay, and Germany.
I think the biggest culture shock in Germany was the structure and the order, and I don't really like people telling me what to do, so I didn't do great in that environment. It was there were a few too many rules for me, but that's why our country's so efficient and everything runs on time.
Exactly. Yeah, I guess certain level of order is needed, but yeah.
Yeah,
but like,
I need a little bit more chaos in my life.
Yeah.
Germany was not my forever home.
Yeah, that's understandable. Okay. And so from Germany you went to Hungary. Yeah. And were there any culture shocks there? Or
yeah, so Hungary was very interesting. There's a little bit of a pessimism that's in the culture. They're lovely people. Like, I don't want to sound like I'm slagging off the Hungarians at all. But it was not too far in the recent past that they were under communism. And you can still feel just a little bit of that as a presence. And it's something that my Hungarian friends spoke about as well. You know, they're like, oh yeah, you know, Hungarians, they'll just be a little bit cooler at the beginning. Once you become friends with them, oh my god, you're part of the family. Like, you know.
Yeah, it sounds like Poland, to be honest.
Yeah. And that was interesting. Yeah. I had come from, you know, Wales, and like, obviously then once I came here to Ireland, I mean, just the friendliest people you'll ever meet in your life. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So you experience all sorts of like shades of like optimism and like
yeah. But I also, because in America, like, they're super friendly. And you'll like meet people and they'll give you a hug as they meet you. That's not so much my cup of tea. So I did I liked the Hungarian. One of the things that I really liked about Hungary was that you didn't have to put on any sort of show of like fake happiness. If you're having a bad day, you can scowl. And it was nice to not have to feel like society was telling you that you needed to smile all the time, and, you know, like, sometimes life sucks. And there was an authenticity there in Hungary.
There are not that many expectations for you to be always joyful. And
exactly, yeah. You could have a bad day, like, and you can, you know, walk down the street with a stormy disposition.
Language and language barrier or something. So you mentioned to me privately that you actually learned Hungarian.
Yeah.
And do you speak any other languages? And how did you navigate sort of like language barriers if it happened? Yeah. Did you have any?
Yeah.
You know,
language barriers 100% happen, and it can be a struggle. So I learned Hungarian to get my Hungarian citizenship. Once I moved to Hungary, I was very confident in myself. I had to go to the embassy and apply in Hungarian. The whole interview was done in Hungarian. But once I got to Hungary and was just talking to regular people, I realized that I spoke textbook Hungarian and I did not speak street Hungarian. And I did not speak the language. I was like, oh, I can make myself understood. Inflections at the end of the words, and that's how they denote like what is the direct object of the sentence and the indirect object, etc. So when you're listening to Hungarian, you have to like listen to all the bits at the end of the word to understand what they're actually saying. So they might put words in different orders than the textbook would have taught me to do. So I just oftentimes was like just flying by the seat of my pants, listening for the vocabulary that I knew. When I was in Germany, I took some German lessons, but it was while I was living in Germany that I discovered I could get Hungarian citizenship through my dad's side of the family if I learned Hungarian. So I started studying with a tutor, and all my German friends would sort of scratch their heads and go, so you're living in Germany?
Yeah.
And you're studying Hungarian? And I was like, yeah, look, if your country was going to give me citizenship, I'd be learning German right now. But I did pick up a lot of German from living there, because it's so close to English, you know. There were some times where I could understand signs
like
that were
Freitag,
written.
like Friday,
Yeah.
or, you know, you can, yeah.
It's very difficult. A lot of your interactions will be, like, with mime and charades to get your point across. Sometimes it can be a lot of fun. Like, I had, when I was getting my tax number in Hungary, the woman in the tax office was very sweet and very, she was very patient with my Hungarian. So when locals react to you in that way, you feel like you're in a safe place, and then, you know, you're not so scared to make mistakes. Versus another time I had to go in, paperwork done, and this was like at the main city hall. And the woman asked me a question that I didn't understand. So I said, I'm sorry, I don't, you know, I'm learning Hungarian. And she put her hands up and said, come back with a translator. And I was like, oh
what an attitude.
Like, what am I going to do? I just need, like, this paperwork done. And someone just sat down a couple seats, had overheard the conversation, and he said, she needs to see your ID. So I handed the woman my ID, tick, 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 gave me the paperwork that I needed. That was it.
That was it.
But she was just being
a
bitch. We are very spoiled coming from an Anglo speaking country because everyone speaks English.
Yeah.
You're going to be fine.
That's true.
You need the local language for things like going to the post office because they do not speak English. And like certain restaurants, you know, if you're like out in the countryside or you're speaking to, you know, someone of like an older generation, but all the young people will speak English. However, I do recommend learning the local language because it makes your experience so much better.
Yeah, you feel like you can fully participate, like socialize, and like, yeah, exactly. I agree. Yeah, that surprised me in Spain. Like, a lot of people didn't speak English, like pharmacy, doctors, nothing. So it was a nice motivation for you to learn Spanish. Like, you really need to like fully immerse yourself. Yeah.
It can be frustrating as well when you're learning a new language and you're in the country because they'll just immediately switch to English. Even if you continue talking in the local language because you're trying to practice, they'll just keep responding to you in English.
Yeah.
So it can be like, you might have the best intentions to go out and practice, but then no one will practice with you.
Yeah, because they also want to practice English.
Yeah, exactly.
Or whatever.
So it's good to go to like, I think I saw, there was one girl on TikTok who moved to Thailand, and she was having this problem. She was like, no one's speaking to me in Thai. So she's like, what I started doing is I started getting massages, because it was these old Thai women who didn't speak a lick of English. And she was like, I would just go there and talk to them. And she's like, that's honestly what like improved my Thai to the point where I could start talking to younger people.
Amazing. Okay.
Yeah. So like find a service that the employees don't speak English and go there.
That's another tip.
I also saw, I heard one guy talking about moving to France, and he was like, yeah, no one in France would practice French with me. And he goes, unless I went into like really expensive boutique shops and just started buying a lot of expensive clothes, because then they're going to humor you, you know, as you speak in their local language. So there are two techniques.
Okay, yeah, whatever your budget is.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I can't buy those scarves, but I can go to the Thai masseuse.
So, some tips for onboarding expats, for newly
You're getting on the airplane for the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're moving to another country, or you're considering this. What are the practical sort of tips that you would share? Yeah,
so there's definitely steps to take. So there are things like, you know, obviously you have to find somewhere to live. And you have to find a way to get your stuff there. So there are often, every country will have like its version of, like here in Ireland, Daft, daft.ie, where they post flats. So you start on there. Also, oftentimes there will be Facebook groups for the local area. That will be like, I'm looking for a roommate, I'm looking for a flat. So when I moved to Wales, I got that apartment because I was on the university's Facebook page, and someone had just posted on the university's Facebook page saying, we're looking for one person to join our flat. And I just messaged this girl and was like, I'll join your flat. And that was that. When I moved to Germany, I think I got the first flat on just like one of those websites that, you know, post flats. I think I arrived in Germany, I was couch surfing for a few days, viewed 3 apartments in that time, and then moved into one. When I moved to Hungary, I got my flat through a Facebook group that was like looking for a flat in Budapest. And then when I moved here, I also got the flat through Facebook. I think it was being advertised like on the Facebook Marketplace. So so those are sort of the places where you can go like to start with getting a flat. A subreddit specific to that city, so you can go on there and post like, I'm moving, you know, what should I think of? So then there are other practical things you have to do, like some countries will have you register your location. Germany did that, Hungary did that. I didn't have to do that in Wales or in Ireland. I would try and downsize everything that I have before a big move. And then I would pack everything into suitcases, and I would usually mail myself like a big box of my winter clothes because those are quite bulky and just take up a lot of room in your luggage.
Yeah.
But you do have to basically move with as few stuff as possible because you're going to buy a bunch of stuff when you're there.
Yeah.
And it would probably be cooler stuff than you would have brought with you anyway because like, you're in a new country and like there's new, you know, patterns.
New country, new me.
Yeah, like there's loads of cool stuff that's going to come your way. So try and bring as little as possible. And then things like finding a doctor. So in Hungary, it goes by your location actually, so that's why you get this lakcímkártya, this address card. So then within your address, like you'll just naturally be assigned to a doctor in that area. You just go and like announce yourself. And obviously healthcare was free in Hungary, so that was convenient.
Yeah.
Other places, it's not. Here in Ireland, you have to like call around to doctors and find ones that are like taking in patients, which can be difficult, but not impossible. Other things like public transportation, everywhere in Europe, basically it's easy to get around once you're here. Like some countries will have things like in Germany, you get insurance for like everything, including like if you have a pet in your flat, you get like pet insurance. It's like it was like 50 euros for a year, like it's, you know, nothing exorbitant. But like the joke amongst the Germans is like you literally have insurance for everything.
All right.
So things like that, you know, I had no idea. And like opening a bank account, right? So like you got to go and figure out, and it can be a little bit of a circus doing that because oftentimes it will be like, oh well, to get a bank account, you know, you have to have a local phone number, and sometimes it'll be like, well, to get a local SIM card, you have to have a bank account. So at some point, you're like,
circle,
yeah, there's a little bit, and you just have to expect it. It's going to come. There's going to be a lot of running from government office to government office, back to the government office who are giving you conflicting information. Bureaucracy is the same in every country. It's a pain.
Yeah, it is a pain. Yeah.
So those are all big things. Be patient with yourself.
It's part of the experience, and
it can feel a bit daunting, but yeah, have a good time.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, great. So that would conclude our conversation.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.